Welcome one, welcome all. It is Tuesday, March 7th, 2023, the first Tuesday in the month of March, I think. Is that the way that works? Yeah, first Tuesday in the month of March. It is 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, which means it is a live Blogging the Boys Roundtable. You can watch us live on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. You can, of course, catch the rewatch at your own convenience or listen to this show on the Blogging the Boys podcast network. My name is RJ Ochoa, and I have literally been slacking, taking some weeks off here on the Blogging the Boys Roundtable. We are spreading the wealth, having different people sit in the host chair. The last one to do it is the first roundtabler with us tonight. Tony, you messed up my chair, my seat, all the controls and everything. It feels all awkward. You changed the 10 and 2 position that I have going on. Tony Catalina, everybody, you can hear him on Mondays on First and 10 on the Blogging the Boys podcast network and read him at bloggingtheboys.com. Tony, what do you have to say for yourself?
I'll say what, it's a lot less pressure on this side of it, so I gained a lot more respect for your position after last week.
Okay, so you don't have any apologies for changing my comfortable chair settings.
Listen, the driver got to get comfortable regardless.
Tony, are you a recliner person? Do you have a recliner in your home?
Very much so. Yeah, I love my recliner.
I can see you being like a recliner and a blanket, cuddling up with your dog. I can see that being your normal kind of Friday night, so to speak. Chris Halling, thank you for joining us. Chris, you and I did an Instagram live earlier. Everybody go follow Chris on Instagram, Dallas Cowboys Squad. I asked you what you were going to have for dinner before the roundtable at the end of that, Chris. I don't know if you've eaten. Have you eaten? And if so, what did you eat?
I have. I went with the old reliable, easy McDonald's. Not the healthiest, but it was good. So I'm ready to win tonight because of that.
Not a sponsor or anything. Like, we don't have a fast food sponsor, but McDonald's kind of sucks. Like, I would go a lot of places before I went to McDonald's. Just like in my
Big Mac
life.
is one of the best fast food burgers, in my opinion. Can't go wrong with
honestly, it. I mean, like, literally maybe the worst thing you've ever said that I've been around for. But whatever. Our reigning roundtable champion, LP Cruz, came in at the 11th hour, literally in our Slack, said, "Hey, you guys roundtabling tonight? And LP, you are here to defend your crown. How proud are you?"
I mean, I keep it humble, man. Keep it humble. But I'm glad to be here, guys. Thanks for having me again.
Is that a USC sweater? I couldn't tell.
It is. Fight on.
Okay. Advocating for Jordan Addison, it seems, here on the roundtable.
Oh, yeah.
LP Cruz,
hometown hero.
Right on. We've got Brandon Clements. Tonight will be known as Brandon. Don't have to differentiate B1 or B2. Wearing the green Syracuse hoodie. Brandon, is that a St. Patrick's Day situation you got going on here?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's my. I won't be on the next couple of weeks, so I had to get it on before St. Patrick's Day, so I had to rock it.
None of us are aware that you're a Syracuse fan, Brandon. You do a great job of hiding that and keeping it to yourself. So, go. I think it's ironic that you would have a green Syracuse sweater specifically because of the mascot. Like, it's not like the Trojans. You know what I mean? It's like literally the mascot is a color, and you're wearing a different color. So it's just kind of it is what it is.
Hey, we're big Irish up here. We have a lot of great local venues for your drinkers out there. So come check out Tip Hill whenever you get up this way.
All right. On the subject of Irish, I have never seen The Irishman. Danny Phantom, you are our final roundtabler here tonight. Have you devoted the 4.5 hours or whatever it is for the Netflix special?
I did see it, but don't ask me anything about it because it took me a couple days to get through it. So I don't even remember much about it.
There were some suggested, like, here's how to watch The Irishman as a miniseries, like lists. I remember when it came out, it was like, stop it at this point or whatever, et cetera, et cetera. You also came in at the 11th hour, Danny, and I told you to scroll up and read everything we're going to talk about tonight. Have you done that, or are you flying in completely unprepared?
I saw something about tight ends, and that's all I know, RJ. Sorry.
Right on. Well, Kevin is with us in the chat, says, "Hey guys, what is up, Kevin? What is up to Rick or Kalani?" Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He says, "Hi guys," with the waving emoji. We are going to talk about tight ends in case anybody missed it today on Tuesday. Both Todd McShay from ESPN and Dane Brugler from The Athletic. Obviously, a lot of Cowboys fans know Dane from the draft show. Both of them mocked Utah tight end Dalton Kincaid to the Dallas Cowboys with the 26th overall pick. A lot of aggregation happened around this. Our own Dave Halpern wrote about it at the site at bloggingtheboys.com. And needless to say, there are a lot of Cowboys fans, Tony, running around like SpongeBob and Patrick. No. I don't want a tight end, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So let's kind of start the conversation off this way. Do we really think the Cowboys are going to draft a tight end in the first round? We don't have to say it a million times. We all anticipate Dalton Schultz to walk in free agency. So let's assume we are in a Schultz-less world.
Yeah, I do think there's some real validity there, especially because of the people who are talking about. I last year I didn't know how real the Tyler Smith talk was until it happened, but it seemed to be people really jumped on that early. Whatever the Cowboys organization are doing to tip their hand with some of the interest in the people they like, the guys that do this and do this for a living are right on the money last year, and that kind of tells me now as we creep closer to the draft, this might be real. So I think this is the first time we've actually saw that, and I'd be interested to see how these other mock drafts progress. And we could really see a pattern here. And I didn't really have that on my bingo card for a first round pick, but it looks very real at this time.
So
I think
the question is, do you believe it? You do, Tony.
I do believe it. Yeah, because of the people who are talking about it, I absolutely believe it.
Okay, Chris, you are passionate about this, it seems. Do you buy this?
Honestly, I think it kind of depends on what happens in free agency, but it's different because the draft happens after free agency. But I really don't buy it. I don't see a first round prospect really at the tight end position that I would love the Cowboys to select. I think that there's other needs like cornerback, wide receiver, who would be a smarter pick for the Cowboys. If we were going to do anything with that first round pick involving tight ends, it would be trading for a veteran one, in my opinion. That's what I would rather do. Maybe a Kyle Pitts or maybe even a Mark Andrews or someone who could impact right now. Like you sent the graphic earlier this morning, first round tight ends don't really produce like that in their first season. That the best one was Kyle Pitts. So I don't know. I'm not really that on board with selecting a tight end in the first round.
You mentioned the graphic I sent. This is courtesy of our friends at True Media. This is actually all rookie tight ends since 2000, the year 2000 specifically. The only one to have at least 1,000 receiving yards in a single season was Kyle Pitts in 2021. Obviously, there was some chatter back then. Obviously, a lot of us wanted the Cowboys to draft him. Thankfully, it went the way it did with Micah Parsons. But Danny, I'll come to you. Can you remember a rookie tight end that impressed you? I mean, this list is, again, I mean, just in descending order: Kyle Pitts, Jeremy Shockey, Jordan Matthews, Evan Ingram, John Carlson, Timothy Wright. There was some fun stuff there. Aaron Hernandez, that was obviously the great 2010 year for New England. Noah Fant kind of recently. Mark Andrews with the Ravens. Gronk right there again, as mentioned. Like, it is hard to find a tight end that contributes right away, Danny Phantom.
No, it is. And I actually, to be quite honest, I didn't even realize. I think Pitts had quietly. I didn't even realize he had that many yards. I know that he hardly found the end zone, so everybody was disappointed that drafted him high in the fantasy drafts his rookie season. But it's one of those positions that tight ends they do ask you to block. I mean that is part of their job, and I think there's a learning curve there, and that's why I don't think you can see immediate contribution. I mean, look at our guy Schultz here. I mean, we didn't sell hardly nothing of him until year 3 as far as anything in the receiving game. So I don't know. I don't think there's any validity to this. I think that's silly. I think you see this, people start mocking players to based on needs, and the Cowboys, we're going to lose Schultz, so obviously that's an easy one. I love Dalton Kincaid. I've looked at maybe 40 players so far, and I love Dalton Kincaid. I mean, I would love for the Cowboys to get him, but at 26, no. I mean, I don't. It's kind of almost like running back in the sense of like, it's just not a position of value to where you wouldn't mind having Bijan Robinson, but I don't want to use my first round pick on that.
Well, it's like you said, Danny. I mean, tight ends are valuable as a pass blocker or a run blocker, obviously, but you're not drafting an offensive lineman. Like you're drafting somebody to score, somebody to get in the end zone, somebody to pick up yards and help you move your offense. Brandon, Danny mentioned Dalton Schultz and how he didn't really have an impact until year 3. It was only because Blake Jarwin tore his ACL that opened the door for Dalton Schultz, obviously, in that 2020 season. Blake Jarwin, the Cowboys found as an undrafted free agent. Dalton Schultz, who again came out of nowhere as a surprise to be a huge contributor for them, was a 4th-round pick. Obviously, Jake Ferguson last year, 4th-round pick. Peyton Hendershot, undrafted free agent. Like, the big names that we've seen in the post-Jason Witten world have not been first-round picks, Brandon. Like, why are we entertaining this idea that the Cowboys now have to spend the most premium draft capital they have on the tight end position?
It's smokescreen season. That's what it comes down to. That's how I look at it. It always happens this time of year. Certain players are getting linked up to certain teams. And I agree with Danny. I mean, Kincaid's he's a good prospect, but this is too rich. I think there's other positions in need that are much more important. And if you want to go with another 4th-round tight end, I got a guy in the 4th or even the 5th round. You might be able to get him. Is Payne Durham out of Purdue? That's one of my guys. I watched him against my Syracuse Orange, and he just destroyed the Syracuse Orange. And I went back and watched a lot of his tape, and he's a heck of a player, and I think you can get him in the you could easily get him in the 4th round, even the 5th round, and you're not. So again, you could still attack certain needs that that we need to see the Cowboys attack, like cornerback, wide receiver. I'm sticking to my guns on this. I want to see a cornerback and a receiver taken. It doesn't matter which order; it just depends on who's there, 1st and 2nd round. That's just the way. That's where I'm looking at the board. And Tony, I was looking at Joey Porter Jr. I've been seeing some more mocks inside the top 10. So I think my pipe dream of getting Joey Porter is looking less and less. But there's some quality corners that are they're going to be at the back end of the draft. And then we got Addison out of USC for a receiver. I think that's like a guy to keep an eye on. I'm seeing him. He's a little bit he's high teens, low 20s from what I'm seeing. So I mean he could slip. The Cowboys could maybe move up. I mean there's options there, but. A tight end right now, in the in the 1st round, it's pick 26. No, thank you. I'll pass, and you know what? I'll take my chances in the later rounds. And if worst case scenario, there's not a player to take in the draft at tight end, then why not just we have Ferguson, we have McEwen, we have Hendershot, which, like you said, 4th round pick and 2 undrafted guys. I'd be okay with those guys at the end of the day if we could upgrade the other positions that are more important at this point.
Well, and I would say the most hyped tight end on the Dallas Cowboys that wasn't Jason Witten in recent memory was a 6th round pick, Enrico Gathers. So you don't have to be like a top of the line dude to, have a lot of people excited about you. LP, when you did kind of refresh yourself on what we were going to chat about, you took a look at one of the graphic I sent. Again, shout out to True Media for this. I wanted to see how rookie tight ends fared for Mike McCarthy, obviously in his time as a play caller with the Green Bay Packers. So what you're looking at, if you're watching on YouTube, is all of the rookie tight ends that Mike McCarthy had during his time in Green Bay, which was 2006 through 2018. And LPU said, I would love a Jermichael Finley. Now, the Packers took Finley in the 3rd round in 2008. That was the same draft that Dallas found Martellus Bennett in, who has actually been the most productive rookie tight end that the Cowboys have had in recent memory. He has the most touchdowns of any rookie Cowboys tight end since 2000 with 4. But that being said, do you see anything here, LP, that you're like, oh, okay, bet Mike McCarthy has to replicate that guy that season here in 2023 with the Cowboys?
Absolutely not. And we can look at this list alone and kind of consider that, but think about all the investments that the team has made in tight ends in recent years or older years before that. And then think about the league at large. Think about guys that go in the 1st round that don't have the value that you take them for. Think about a Hayden Hurst. Think about an Evan Ingram. They don't blossom to so much later on down the line that the juice isn't worth the squeeze at that point. So I wouldn't do it at all. And I really, like Brandon had said, I'm thinking receiver. I'm thinking cornerback. There's so many other things you can do. Edge rusher, maybe. A lot of different options. I'd rather have an edge rusher versus having a tight end. And it's the investment is not worth like the payoff. So I wouldn't do it again. Look at the entire NFL. Look at a team like the Patriots, who invested heavily in tight ends in free agency, and it backfired. Again, you wait, get your more pressing needs. And I understand how the mock drafts work. We lose a guy, we gain a guy in the mock drafts, hence the whole Bijan mocks. But again, the positional value does not add up to 26 for me. So please pass on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to come for Todd McShay, but he had Bijan Robinson going to the Eagles at 10, and even that kind of feels a little bit unlikely. It feels like the Eagles are a little bit too smart for that. Again, Todd McShay's awesome, just noting the points you made about mock drafts in general, LP. Tony, you're kind of the one dude that is like, I don't know, man. Like, I could kind of see this. The rest of us are like, this is dumb. This is silly. So do you feel like you're on an island, Tony Catalina?
No, I want to clarify my comment on that. It's
you want to walk
it's
back,
not what I would do. No, it's not at all what I would do. Like I said, I'm indifferent about it. I think there's much more better opportunity to other positions that need to fill the need. I'm just saying I felt the exact same way about Tyler Smith, thinking there's no way the Cowboys going to take a 1st round offense line. Not going to take Tyler Smith. There's better guys out there. Look what's on the board. And they took Tyler Smith. So whether that's a Cowboys issue or an us issue, these teams and these mock draft guys are figuring out what the Cowboys want to do. And this is the first time that we've seen this. And if it continues to progress until we get late into April and we're still seeing the tight end trend, I'm reluctant to believe that there may be some smoke with that fire, or vice versa.
Tony, Kevin offered you 5 points for the take, but -5 for waffling at the end.
I wasn't falling on that sword. That's not what I want to do. It's not, you know what I mean? This is what I think is maybe why it's saying. I am 100% on board with the cornerback or wide receiver. That's been crystal clear in all of my mock drafts that I posted on the site. I just think if most of these guys are saying this, there may be some validity there until I'm proven otherwise.
So you don't view yourself as waffling, is I guess what you're saying.
Not at all. I just had to clarify
Okay.
my point because it can get lost on the show.
I don't think that I would never let that happen. Just to be clear. So, Danny Vance, thank you for the super chat. Vance says, "Do the examples of Kelsey, Kittle, and Waller sway your views on the tight end value?" Now, Danny, I wrote about this subject. The article will come out probably on Wednesday at the site. And here's the thing: like, I hate the term "win now," Danny Phantom, but the Cowboys are kind of there, right? Like, if we have to apply that label, they're here, right? Like, the goal is to win the Super Bowl or as best they can in 2023. And while let's just say Dalton Kincaid could turn into the type of tight end that we've seen Darren Waller, Travis Kelce, George Kittle become throughout their NFL careers, the likelihood of that happening or the likelihood of getting that sort of production their rookie season is very, very, very low. So it does feel like it would not necessarily be the best utilization of resources for what you're trying to accomplish in what might be the final year of the Mike McCarthy era.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to kind of defend a little bit I want to do some waffling myself, and I want to defend this. Because I think that, that Dalton Kincaid at 26 is too rich for me, but I want to throw this out there. The Cowboys love to get the best player at certain positions in the draft. They have a history of doing that. And while I don't view Kincaid as that player, although he's one of my favorites, I do think if you look at a player like Michael Mayer, who is, he's got the athleticism and the size to where he could be. I can see if there's any tight end in this group, well, actually the Georgia guy too, but if there's any tight end from this group that could be a planet player, like, because, he draws comparisons to Gronk, quite a bit because of just his size and athleticism. And if the Cowboys have an opportunity to get cute and try to hack the draft by going after one of those players that, why are they there at 26? I could see that happening. I don't know if Kincaid is that guy, or it could be a player like Mayer. So I wouldn't rule it out, because the Cowboys, they put on their fancy pants, in the draft, and they love to get the best of something. And, a player like Mayer, could fall into that category. So a little bit of waffling there, to different player, but it could happen.
Kevin did give you 5 points. Danny has 13 points at the moment, just so we're clear. LP has 10. Chris, you have 7. Tony and Brandon, you guys are riding caboose with 6 points apiece. Tony, you would have had 11, but you had the 5 deducted from you. The the waffling issue that kind of inspired this whole conversation. Chris, one word: if the Cowboys take a tight end, I realize this is a general statement, but if they take a tight end at 26, you will feel what? Maybe that's the word.
Indifferent, I guess. Confused. I don't know. I don't know. I just, I hate to be waffling too, but the more we're talking about this, like, I think the Cowboys need to go for whoever's the best player available on the board. I think that they're in a win now situation and they need to get immediate impact. And I know we're talking about positional values and what's good in the first round, what's not. I think it kind of comes down to, kind of like the CeeDee Lamb and Michaela Von Chason situation we saw. Like, we needed Chason a lot more needs wise, but it's a good thing that we picked CeeDee Lamb. He impacted us much more than Chason would have. So I'm kind of like, I really just think it depends how the draft board is looking at pick 26. Like, if we passed on a really good corner or a really good wide receiver, then I'd be feeling a little bit, but if Kincaid's there and he's clearly the best option, or if Darnell Washington's there, or the Notre Dame tight end, like, I'm very okay with it if it's the best player on the board. So I've kind of waffled too a little bit, but I don't know. I'm kind of convincing myself that it could be an option.
Kevin notes that today's sponsor looks like it is Waffle House. Now, Danny, you have self-proclaimed waffled. Chris, you have self-proclaimed waffled. Tony, you got credit for waffling from these guys, even though you were very staunch in the fact that you did not waffle. So Tony doesn't want to be
his waffle.
Right. Tony doesn't want to be associated with the waffling that is happening here. I guess Brandon, LP, do either one of you want to waffle? Like, do either one of you have some pride in your original statements? Like, what's the deal here? Does anybody have any conviction? Brandon?
No waffling here. No waffling here. I love a good waffle. All right, I love a good waffle, but I'm not waffling. I want a cornerback, receiver, first 2 picks. I don't even want to. One word to describe a tight end is yuck.
Okay, so then it is.
I got different words.
Failure is a dramatic way to. So you guys agree? It's really difficult to spin a tight end in the first round. Understanding there's some context that would be necessary, the board, how things win, et cetera, like understanding all the common sense variables. Brandon, LP, you're both in agreement that a tight end at 26 is an unideal result.
Don't do it. So, okay. If you make, okay. So he said yuck. My other word rhymes with it, but I can't say it here. So
wow,
why
LP
would
wants
you
to
do
defend
it?
this title. Okay.
Well done.
I mean, why would you do it? So I'm going to add the tight end. Again, the tight end is a good prospect. I'm with Dan on that one. He's correct. Phantom Man, you are correct. It's a very good prospect. But I'm going to add the tight end to the room that has McKeon, Ferguson, and the other guy, Hendershot. So I got 4 tight ends. So I'm going to take a tight end tops while having a running back on a tag, while still having a major hole at wide receiver, while still having question marks about Michael Gallup. I'm going to do all that and say, you know what? Let me just take a tight end in the first round because he's the best guy at this spot. We just talked about how disposable the position is and has been in the entire league, but I'm going to do it because, well, he's the best guy on the board. I got to do it. What sense does that make to you guys? Honestly, like think it through for a second. Does it make any particular sense knowing that I may have to address receiver with a second round pick, a guy that may not be ready to play right now?
Tony,
talk to me, man. I don't get
enough, Tony, I feel like I understand your position the least here when you were accused to be the original waffle. Brandon and LP seem very, very strong in the I don't want anything to do with this path, whereas Danny and Chris are a little bit more open to it. You have assessed that you think the Cowboys are at least open to it, but what does Tony Catalina want? What is beating in your aortic pump right now?
Yeah, I think that's the problem. I answered the question too literally. I think that it's possible to them. It's not ideal in my mind. It's not anything that I am clamoring for. It's probably the 5th option that I would say in the first. It's something with an uck in it. I'll tell you that. It's not quite.
LP's joke.
That's it might be suck. Yeah, no. So I mean, the way it looks at for me, it's yes. I've been very clear. I want a wide receiver. I want a cornerback. I would even take an offensive lineman here. I mean that, and then talking about tight end. I'm all in favor. I mean, one of the good reasons why I feel I'm okay with Dalton Schultz leaving is because I'm excited about the prospects of Jake Ferguson. So why would I bring in a guy who is going to, we know how they feel about draft picks and giving them, force feeding them time. Like, I want to see what Ferguson has. Travis Kelce even said that he thinks he's one of the next guys that is up. I'm excited about the prospects of that happening. So, yeah, my question is, or my answer was to answer the question literally, but I am not on board with the tight end. But I'm saying it's very plausible for me to see the Cowboys do it because that's just how they operate sometimes.
All right. So an update after our tight end discussion, and I guess like waffle hors d'oeuvres. LP in the lead with 15 points. We have Danny Phantom and Tony at 13 points, Chris and Brandon at 12 points. Does anybody feel like this is an unfair representation of the way things have gone so far tonight?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's well said. Okay, this one's kind of a quick one, but worth mentioning because it's fun. And I don't know how much Connor and Joey are going to touch on it on tomorrow's show, but earlier today on Tuesday, the New York Giants came to terms on a long-term agreement with quarterback Daniel Jones. They did not have to place the franchise tag on him. They did wind up placing it on Saquon Barkley. So that's 2 running backs within the division. Obviously, Tony Pollard being the other. Josh Jacobs got tagged. So the Cowboys, one of 3 teams to place the tag on the running back position. But Daniel Jones, Danny Phantom, getting paid $40 million a year for 4 years, the exact same way that Dak Prescott is. Danny, how do you think the people who thought the Dak deal was a bad one feel right now?
Well, I don't know, because a lot of people that thought it was a bad deal probably don't have a lot of confidence in Dak. So I don't know. I can't speak to what they feel, but I'll tell you what, I mean, we all knew this was coming. It's just a matter of time and how, Prescott's going to be one of the biggest bargains in football. And I think that when you see a player like Jones going to be making $40 million per year, I mean, there's several other too. I mean, like, I think Stafford's at $40 million too. And then you got Kyler Murray, that's $5 million over there. And then of course, Deshaun Watson's more. I mean, it's just crazy. So I think it just should tell us that we should not get upset about a quarterback that's making that kind of money if they are a good quarterback. And Dak Prescott is a good quarterback. So I think it's fun. I'm glad that Jones is sticking around. It's almost like Eli, you don't want him to retire. So it's like, come on, bring him back, sign him up for more, and the fact that he's going to, take some of that cap space, that just makes me feel even better. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the price of a quarterback. It's just how it is. This is the nature of the beast. You don't get to decide, a lesser value because he's not quite as good. That's just how it works. So I know it makes me feel pretty good. I would love to see the Cowboys lock up Dak even more and make me feel even better. So we can look like if you start looking at Mahomes' contract every year, that thing just looks so sweet. You know what they're paying for him. So I mean, sign him up and just keep him on your roster long term, and then you can just feel good while all the other new quarterbacks are making more.
Well said. Our friends at Pride of Detroit, I assume this is Jeremy Reisman, chiming in the comment section, said, "Miss you, RJ." I do a show with Jeremy every Monday. I wasn't there because I had jury duty. If anybody likes anything we do, they should check out Pride of Detroit. Obviously, Detroit Lions coverage. They do an incredible job, the best Lions site on the internet. But Tony, I know this is near and dear to your heart. If anybody likes our Madden stuff that we do here on the YouTube channel, the simulations and all that stuff, we 100% ripped that idea off of Pride of Detroit. So that was their thing first, and we completely and totally stole it. So everybody subscribe to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel, but go subscribe on Twitch. They have an incredible Twitch presence. They're our great friends. Chris Halling, back to the Daniel Jones thing. This broke while you and I were on Instagram Live earlier today. Do you think it's funny that he is now being paid? Daniel is, at least what Dak is, and that all the Dak people now have to kind of like recognize that they were wrong and dumb and that they argued for nothing because this was always going to be the case, and here we are?
I do think it's funny because really when you look at it, I mean, Daniel Jones this season threw for 15 touchdowns. Last season, he threw for 10 touchdowns. And the year before that, he threw for 11 touchdowns. And that's a guy making the same amount of money as Dak Prescott. I mean, if you look at all these quarterbacks who are on contracts, Daniel Jones is making $40 million a year. Matt Stafford is making $40 million a year. Derek Carr is making $37.5 million a year. $37.5 million a year. Geno Smith just signed a 3-year, $105 million, deal. The Cowboys have the best bargain of all of those players because Dak is clearly heads and shoulders above all of those quarterbacks, and it's looking like a good contract at this point. And I think that it's just awesome. And I think it's fair to point out too that Daniel Jones is 1-5 in his career against the Cowboys, and that one was against Andy Dalton. So I feel really good about this contract situation now, and I think that people need to stop acting like that Dak contract is bad in any way because it's just going to keep aging as Jalen Hurts gets paid, as Justin Herbert gets paid, as Joe Burrow gets paid. All these quarterbacks, it's just going to keep looking sweeter and sweeter.
LP, do you think we're too hard on Daniel Jones? Is he maybe a little bit better than we, kind of joke around and make him out to be? Maybe just a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think he improved. I do think he improved. I think he limited mistakes, but I also think his development or his resurgence, quote unquote, came alongside Saquon Barkley getting better. So it's kind of like a synonymous relationship between those two, or symbiotic, if you will. So I think that's kind of where this is. But I don't even think about the Dak comparison with the contract. Weird. But if anything, I think it's more so about the Zeke parallel. And in the sense of, you take a player that high in the draft, you have to kind of believe in the player and you have to ride it out with the player. And so I think a lot of teams do this. They try to justify their picks by paying the guy another contract, even though it may not be the most sensible thing to do. And would I pay Dan Jones $40 million? No, I wouldn't do it. But because you drafted him high, he supplanted Eli Manning, you feel like you have to do this and have to pay them. And they did it. And guess what? 1-5 versus the Cowboys. So I think it speaks to what teams do in certain spots and speaks to teams that feel like they have to do things based on their prior decisions. And I think, hey, $40 million is still for Dak Prescott, but $40 million is a grip for Daniel Jones. So hats off to you guys.
Sunk fallacy cost is a real thing. Brandon, are you happy to see Daniel Jones sticking around? They also kept Saquon Barkley. Like, they're keeping the core. I think that, for a long time, the Giants have just been an easy 2 wins. At the very least, they're a competitive bunch that are going to be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate Daniel Jones as much as a lot of people do. I think the $40 million, I think it's the Giants. Like, I think they have a good feeling on that he's going to keep getting better with Brian Dable as head coach and Mike Kafka as the offensive coordinator. And he had his best year of his career this past season with the combination of Dable and Kafka. So to me, it feels like he's, they feel like he's on an upward trajectory. And if you get him at $40 million, that's, just like we're talking about the Dak contract being at $40 million, that sounds like a bargain. That Daniel Jones could possibly be a bargain. That's the way they're thinking. If they feel like he's their franchise quarterback, why not get him for $40 million and just let it ride? And I would say this, for bargain purposes, Josh Allen's making 43 and Patrick Mahomes is making 45. So I think the Bills and Chiefs are happy with their investments in the quarterback. So we'll see what happens with Daniel Jones at 40. Again, he's not that great against the Cowboys, but I think the Giants are, I hate to say it, they're on their way up, and $10 million for Saquon Barkley on the tag, I think that's a good number for them. So hey, more competition for the Cowboys in 2023.
Tony, do you have anything to say? Anything at all?
Yeah, I think I understand how the market value of a quarterback works, so I don't even fret over these contracts, right? This is just the cost of doing business. And really, when you're
fret
the
drop.
Giants,
Okay.
when you're the Giants, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place where, okay, if you don't pay Daniel Jones, you got to start back over and you got to hope you hit well in the draft and you got to find a quarterback to come in and kind of, the goal, and people love to live on a rookie deal for a quarterback, but does it set you back? Does it help you? I guess the problem is, do you think Daniel Jones can finally take a leap? I mean, he did have a good year in his first year with Brian Daboll. Maybe that's a mirage, right? Maybe that's not real, but they're in a tough place where, like, okay, we can start over or we can pay this money. But realistically, the Dak Prescott contract was never a bad one. People that, like Danny said before, if you talk about Dak Prescott and you don't like him, the number was always going to be absurd no matter what it is. So for me, it continuously gets better, but from the start, it was always a decent, good contract in my mind anyway.
Great point. Kevin says, lesson for NFL teams: if you don't pick up the 5th year option, don't play him in the 4th year, because if you do and you are wrong, it is going to cost you a lot of money on an unproven player. I think that's a good rule of thumb when it comes to the quarterback position specifically. The Cowboys have rolled that dice on 2 players that they declined the 5th year options for. Taco Charlton never made it there, but Morris Claiborne and Leighton Vander Esch both did return on a second contract for a 5th year, but both were 1 year kind of prove it deals. Mo Claiborne left after that for the New York Jets. We'll see what happens with Leighton Vander Esch, but that does kind of transition us to our next subject that, to be frank, Danny and LP, you weren't a part of because you got to the roundtable planning late in the week. So a little bit of a shout out to Tony, Chris, and Brandon, who, read the message and who said they could do this and who were here on time. So actually just shame for LP and Danny. Do you feel like that's fair, LP?
That's all good, man. I mean, go ahead. So in the lead, right? So it's cool. Go ahead.
Danny, do you embrace your shame?
No, I do not. I think that's just, I can't believe you would call us out like that.
Well, I don't have answers for you both. And I have answers for questions I asked, but I do want to say before we start this last kind of round of subjects here, we have a 4-way tie for second at the moment. Chris, LP, Brandon, and Danny, you each have 15 points. Tony had 15, but used the word fret. So he's now at 16 points, has the solo lead heading into the final portion of the evening. So I asked Tony, I asked Chris, and I asked Brandon earlier this week to give me one thing that they were pleased, one thing they were pissed, not pleased, whatever, about so far this Dallas Cowboys offseason. Very vague, very general sort of things. I have 4 pulled up for us to discuss because we had other things to get to, obviously. 2 pleased, 2 not pleased. I'm not going to mention who gave me these answers. I would like each of you to guess. So Tony, since you have the lead, do you want to start with a pleased or not pleased side of the coin?
Let's start with pleased. I like positivity.
Okay, so pleased, the Cowboys tagged Tony Pollard. Danny, LP, you will be our guessers since you did not provide any answers. So Danny, which of the other 3 do you think is pleased that the Cowboys placed the franchise tag on Tony Pollard?
I'm going to go with Mr. Catalina.
You think it was Tony Catalina. LP, who do you think is pleased that the Cowboys tagged Tony Pollard?
I was going to say Tony.
So you want to copy. You realize this is a game with points on the line. There's a game to win here, and you want to copy somebody else's answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Pretty foolish, because it was not Tony Catalina who was pleased about this. It was Chris Halling who was pleased that the Dallas Cowboys placed the franchise tag on Tony Pollard. It is about $10 million the Cowboys will be paying Pollard coming off the fractured fibula, etc. Chris, why are you pleased? Why was this the number one thing for you when it came to this Cowboys offseason as a whole?
I just think it was a smart decision. I mean, he's coming off of an injury, and at the end of the day, I think it's a good money value for us. I think $10 million for Pollard's okay. I don't hate that contract whatsoever. But also, we don't want to make the same mistake that we made with Ezekiel Elliott in extending him long term and then seeing him regress. This gives us a year to really see how he recovers from that injury before we invest big long term money into him. And I just like the decision, and it made the most sense to me because the Cowboys were pretty adamant that they were going to use the tag regardless of who it was on, that they were going to use it. It made more sense to me than committing $20 million to Leighton Vander Esch, even if he may be more valuable. It just didn't make sense money-wise. I didn't want him to use it on Dalton Schultz. Didn't really want them to use it on Donovan Wilson with our other safeties available, with Jaron Curse and Malik Hooker. So I think it just made the most sense. And Tony Pollard was arguably our most explosive playmaker throughout all of last season. So it's good to have him back. And I feel a lot better heading into 2023, knowing Tony Pollard's going to be on our roster.
I believe Blue 365 says he's literally the only speed on our team, or I wouldn't want it to happen either. Tony, you were accused of feeling this way. So number one, how do you feel about that? And number two, this is kind of a divisive subject. There are some people that are like, oh, of course, Cowboys are going to pay a lot of money to a running back. Again, the Giants are fine tagging Saquon Barkley, Raiders, Josh Jacobs. So your thoughts on the tag on Tony Pollard in general?
I think it's the right move for the Cowboys, right? I think I'm all in on, Ezekiel Elliott has to. I think this is it. I think it's over. I think he gets cut here, but I wanted to keep one of the two in there, and I think it's only for them to slowly wean off of a fresh new backfield. I think I didn't want to see them, pull the Band-Aid and have them both gone for this year, because I don't know what the running back room would look like. It puts a lot of strain on the draft and maybe even free agency. So if you keep Tony Pollard in the fold, you at least got him for one more year, and I like his dynamic ability. Like the commenter said, he is some of our juice. The team looked totally different when he went down against the 49ers in the playoffs, so I think there is value in having here, but I'm not ashamed to say that I'm okay with it being a one and done, regardless of really what Tony Pollard looks like. I think we have seen what the D value at the running back position looks like, and I think that there is guys. I mean, I was watching the combine and seeing the running backs, and there were like 10, 11 guys that I'm like, I would love to see him on a Cowboys uniform. I think he could help. And those are fourth round guys that could really help. So, as far as the Cowboys move, I think it was a good move, but I think it's a bigger picture move to see how this room is going to shake out moving forward.
Danny, I think if the Cowboys offseason was like a presentation that you had to give at work, and you had to get like a laminated cover, and you had to kind of put like a headlining word, I think it would be explosiveness. Right? Like that is the theme of this offseason: get more explosive on the offensive side of the ball. And so my position on Tony Pollard is like, well, if you let him walk, you are down, right? Like you already have very few explosive players. If you let Pollard walk, that number shrinks all the more. I don't want to say the Cowboys were pigeonholed in that sense, Danny Phantom, but they are keeping literally their most explosive playmaker, and it doesn't feel like anybody's really celebrating that.
No, I agree. I think that they are kind of stuck in because similar to like what the Giants did, not exercising their 5th-year option with Jones, and they would have got him much cheaper if they would have done that. The Cowboys they could have gotten Pollard for maybe $5 million, if they would have been a little more proactive on it, and giving him on a short, 3-year, $15 million or something. But now, you can't. You're absolutely right. They cannot go without Pollard. You can't just have CeeDee Lamb as your only playmaker on offense, the only weapon for Dak. So they're stuck. They have to do this. So I feel like they're kind of maybe in the Dalton Schultz situation last year. Let's ride this out. Let's rent him for a year. We're going to replenish. Hopefully, maybe we can get, a nice rookie with fresh legs to be our lead guy, next year, and then and that will be the end of it. But absolutely, you can't go into 2023 without Tony Pollard and with what the Cowboys have. So they absolutely must do. Could you imagine the outrage of Cowboys Nation if we went in the opposite direction and just got rid of one of our most explosive players? It just couldn't happen. So I mean, they had no choice but to bring Pollard back.
Brandon, I wanted to wait because you also answered tagging Tony Pollard for your most pleased thing, and I wanted to see if you would jump. I wanted to see if you would be patient, if what would happen. So you earned a 5-point bonus for biting your tongue and not coming after me. That is well done by Brandon Clements. So you also are enthusiastic about the Cowboys placing the franchise tag on Tony Pollard.
Absolutely. I mean, Tony Pollard is the most dynamic player on the Cowboys offense. I think for $10 million for the season, I think it's a bargain. And then, as Chris was saying as well, I mean, he's coming off the injury, so it buys the Cowboys a year to see how Tony does, after the injury, just to see if he's got enough juice to get through this year and still be the effective player that he was in this past season. So I think that's a smart move. And then if everything goes nice and smooth, you can revisit and see where he stands and see where the tag number is, because maybe you tag again, or maybe you throw an extra couple years in. I mean, I also agree with Danny in one aspect too, because this is a deep running back class, so you can get some good value at the in the last, even on day 3. There's some guys out there like a Mo Ibrahim. I think he's a good player. Of course, my Syracuse guy Sean Tucker is another guy that I'd like to see on the Cowboys. I mean, I mean, there's literally so many options at running back later in the draft. That's why we could sit on it. You got Malik Davis in there. We'll see what happens with Zeke. Who knows what's going to happen at that point. But I'm excited to see what Malik Davis is going to do as well, because I think Tony Pollard is going to need. I don't think he needs to carry the ball 90% of the time, so to speak. I think you can run Malik Davis a good chunk of the time as well, just to save the tread on Tony Pollard as he gets back from recovery, and then bring in a running back in the day 3. And I think that's a smart move. And then again, $10 million for Tony Pollard, I'm on board all day long.
LP, 2 points that I want to bring up from Watsamata. So first of all, super chat. Thank you, Watsamata says, what would you say was Tony Pollard's value on the open market? Less than the tag rate, in my honest opinion. So the question for you first, LP, is do you think Tony Pollard's open market rate would have been less than what he got on the tag, which was effectively $10 million a year?
But the APY, yes, I do think so, because Tony is what, 26, 20, 25. Okay. 25. So I'm thinking that Tony could have gotten somewhere in the ballpark of maybe like 4 for 32, 432. So 8 per season, right? Something like that. And I just want to say this, because I'm not going to waffle on this.
Okay.
Because I do think no matter what happens here in the next year or so, if the tag on Dalton Schultz is any evidence whatsoever, they're going to tag the player. They're going to load up on guys at that spot to avoid having to sign the player, which is 100% the right move. And to kind of piggyback what all you guys said is, for Tony, you have to ride him to the dirt to get somebody else. And I think that's going to be the objective. I think all this stuff, even the Kincaid talk, it's all smoke screens. They're probably going to double up on options at receiver, running back that are dynamic. You guys said already, Ibrahim. I like Chase Brown from Illinois. So I think all this makes perfect sense, because you just couldn't afford to let him go. You were so devoid of playmaking, you couldn't afford to let him go. We're sitting here in November, December, and we're sitting there praising this team for signing T.Y. Hilton, or just talking. You guys know the talking stage, right? We're just talking to Odell Beckham. We're praising things like that. So our bar was so low that this is what we accept. So no, they had to bring him back for the tag. And like I said, the valuation on the market would have been probably cheaper, but you've already let this thing play out too long anyway. So I say you tag the guy was the right move. Hence why I answered with a yes. It was Tony. But for that purpose, tag Tony, add more guys, and move forward. But it would have cost you cheaper had you been more proactive.
I agree. And it sounds cold, but if you want to just get a ton of work out of Tony Pollard on his franchise tag year, that's the way you need to be an NFL front office, right? We all applauded their decision with DeMarco Murray in 2014 and then not re-signing him. And it was they learned that lesson and then literally flipped to the opposite side of the spectrum by drafting Zeke with the 4th overall pick another year later. Danny, I actually want to come to you on this. Watsamata had a follow-up question, said, true or false, the tag rate for the running back is affected strongly by Zeke's contract. This is some incredible irony that I hadn't really considered. In case anybody's unaware, the franchise tag value is the correct me, Danny, if I misspeak here, the average of the top 5 highest paid players on an AP or from an APY perspective. So you're taking the top 5 highest paid players at that particular position, taking the average, and that is the franchise tag value. Zeke's cap hit for this year is obviously astronomical for a running back. It does technically inflate the tag value for the running back, Danny Phantom.
Yeah, it does. It's kind of funny that that's the case. Yeah, it goes exactly what you said. It's for the prior year,
right?
So, yeah, that's the case. And Zeke, the Cowboys
that's
are paying.
Amazing.
The Cowboys are basically, it's costing, the Raiders and the Giants and Dallas, a little more because of what the Cowboys did. So yeah, that's that. I don't know what to say about that.
Oops.
Yeah, that is a real it's like cutting your nose off to spite your face and then being like, wow, sure could use a nose right about now. It's just insane. Okay, let's go to a not pleased thing. And Danny, LP, you have to guess again, because again, you were the only 2 who weren't on time. So somebody said they were not pleased about the Dak Prescott contract conversation. LP, who do you think it was?
Can you give me more context? Why would you not be pleased about it? I don't know why they would say it. I can't give
you more context because all I wrote down after the person sent it was the Dak Prescott contract conversation. So that's,
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to say by process of elimination. Will it you, Tony?
Tony can't answer yet. Danny, who do you think said this?
Oh, geez. I don't want to copy LP because he did that to me
Ooh.
last time.
Go ahead. It's fine.
But
Yeah.
actually, I don't know. I don't really. It's kind of confusing to me there. So that I feel like Brandon sometimes confuses me. So I'm gonna go with Brandon.
Brandon actually confused me, and I had to give 5 bonus points to Chris because Chris's most pleased thing was not tagging Tony Pollard. It was only Brandon who answered that. So Chris was a good soldier and went along with it, despite the fact that I got my wires crossed. So I gave you your 5 bonus points, Chris Holling. Shout out to you. Shout out to Brandon. You were the only person who actually had that answer. So yeah, I haven't hosted one of these in a while. I'm a little bit rusty, so that's on me. But the person who was not pleased about the Dak Prescott contract conversation popping up was, in fact, Tony Catalina. So, Tony, offer us the full context, what you believe, et cetera, why you are upset about this being a thing.
It's funny how quick we forget about news cycles, right? When Jerry is sitting in his bus for 90 minutes having a conversation about we can't do stuff because we're hamstrung by the quarterback's salary and how we're getting paid. So I'm very frustrated about the fact that Jerry still gives us that BS. He feeds us that line that, when you pay a quarterback this type of money, you got to move and operate differently. I think it's a load of BS. We see teams. I mean, look at the Saints. The Saints get fancy and tap dance around the cap and they're able to sign Derek Carr and do different things and bring people in. And we're still here sitting here begging for, T.Y. Hilton, like LP said. So it's a frustrating conversation, but it's laughable because this will be the company line, right? It not the fact that we paid Ezekiel Elliott $90 million to set the running back room that now we're paying Tony Pollard that number, but we're going to blame it on Dak Prescott. And then we're going to sit here and have Stephen Jones say, maybe it'll happen overnight. We'll get a restructure and we get Dak asking or getting asked about it. So the whole conversation about this is Dak's fault, this is the quarterback's fault, I think that is the super frustrating part. And it seems to be highlighted in Dallas the most.
Okay, that's good context. By the way, Tony mentioned it, but in case anyone did not see, Dak was at an event today on Tuesday. There was so much happening across the NFL. This kind of flew under the radar. He actually said that same line as Tony mentioned. He said that he agreed with Stephen Jones that this would probably happen overnight. It feels like everybody is openly admitting that Dak is going to get a contract extension this offseason. So the Daniel Jones contract that we're all laughing at, Brandon, is important. It is important contextually because Dak's price is only going to go up, and we talk about Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, quarterbacks who are all eligible for extensions for the first time this offseason. If you wait and let those quarterbacks beat you, and if they establish a new APY, you're going to have to pay Dak Prescott along those lines. So do you, Brandon, not want to see a Dak Prescott extension happen as soon as possible, as Danny Phantom said earlier tonight?
I'd like to see the news break after we get off the show tonight.
Actually, Brandon, for content purposes, we want it during the show so that we can react during the show, not after.
Well, I can't see it right now, so I want to see it. So I want to see it by the time I wake up tomorrow. How about that? So I want to see it done because, like you said, the Daniel Jones thing just happened. There's other guys that are going to be getting some big contracts, and I think at this point, I mean, the Cowboys have already, they've already shot themselves in the foot before, where they could have had a Dak, right around $35 million. I mean, that's still longer than it feels like, but they could have had him at 35 for a little bit there, and they shot themselves in the foot. But if you can do it now and get this deal done in the next 24 hours, I think that's the way to go, and just get it at 40 again. Even if it, even if it, you extend them out another 2 extra years, just to spread it out just a little bit more. That's just going to free money up for other players because we have so many big contracts that are going to be coming up. Not too far in the future is Micah Parsons is going to want a big contract. We also obviously have Trayvon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb. There's so many quality players that are going to be looking for contracts. So if we can get Dak into a longer term deal, we could, the Cowboys are good at moving that money, spreading that money a little bit further back just to keep guys on the roster for the next, year or two. And you got to have money ready for guys like Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, because I don't think anybody in this conversation is going to say, oh, I'm okay with, running this letting Dak's contract just kind of run its course, and we might lose Micah Parsons. I don't think anybody in their right mind is going to say that. So you got to lock up the contract, get a long-term deal done ASAP.
I agree with you. Chris, Vance Williams says yesterday's price is not today's price, talking about Dak Prescott. Again, $40 million a year. That is 2 years ago price for Dak Prescott. The calculus has changed. Kevin notes that Dak isn't going to take the same money after the Watson contract. Chris, is that not going to be the most annoying week across the rest of the offseason? Whenever the Dak extension happens, it is going to be, your Instagram comments are going to be all over the place. People saying that Dak isn't worth it. He's getting paid X million for Y interceptions that he threw, et cetera, et cetera. It will be a dark time for Dallas Cowboys fans.
Yeah, I already have a lot of people who are big doubters of him and want to get rid of him anyway on my Instagram page. So I can only imagine if he gets a $48 million a year extension, or if he gets something along those lines, which honestly would probably be around his value at this point. But I'm sure everyone would just see that number and be like, oh my gosh, we're paying all that money for interceptions. We're paying all that money without any playoff success. Like, the end of the day, that's business. You have to keep a quarterback. Thank God we have Dak Prescott, and we're not going through a Carolina Panthers situation where they're trying to get like every veteran who they can, like a Baker Mayfield or a Sam Darnold, and can't find consistency at the quarterback position. At the end of the day, I mean, if you don't like Dak Prescott, whatever, he is a productive quarterback, and we stand the best chance at competing for a Super Bowl with him as our starting quarterback than we would moving on from him, regardless of the money. So it's going to be a really annoying week seeing the media and seeing all the trolls posting and commenting, haha, the Cowboys paid Dak this much money. But at the end of the day, the only thing that'll shut him up is the Super Bowl. So let's hope that that can lead us to that.
LP, a game I like to play on different podcasts and stuff is, where does Dak Prescott rank among quarterbacks in the NFC? I think we'll all admit, if somebody wanted to rank Jalen Hurts number one, I don't think any of us are like in the mood to hard press against that right now. We could certainly make that argument, fight that fight, but for the purposes of moving on in an expedited fashion, Jalen Hurts is number one. So the conversation starts at 2. Who else is number 2 in the entire NFC right now on Tuesday, March 7th? Your options quickly are Daniel Jones, I guess Sam Howell, Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff, Aaron Rodgers, or maybe Jordan Love, Justin Fields, Kyle Trask, I suppose, Derek Carr, whatever Panthers quarterback, as Chris noted, maybe Desmond Ridder, Brock Purdy, or Trey Lance, take your pick. Matthew Stafford, who's won a Super Bowl. Many people will tell you, obviously, and use that as a trump card. Geno Smith now has the extension with Seattle, or Kyler Murray. Is Dak not second?
First.
LP, you're muted. I think you're muted, or something.
My bad. He's 2, right? He's a firm 2. And again, people that don't like Dak Prescott, it's on you. And as the saying in the song goes, if they want to hate, let them hate, and watch the money pile up, because you have to pay the quarterback. Simple as that. Quarterbacks have to be paid. With Dak Prescott this time around, I say get him under contract. And I never liked the 4-year contract. I felt that was too short, and you would be right back at the table once again, way too early for my taste. He won. Yeah. He won, but they tried to win too. And this like money mud wrestling that they like to do with the quarterbacks and all their players, just save yourself the trouble. Pay Dak Prescott. And again, if it's 6 years at $48 million, it is what it is. You pay the quarterback. You secure the assets. You always secure your assets, at least the most valuable one in sports. Take the quarterback one time over. But I will say this, though. For people that don't like Dak Prescott, think he's not good enough to win a Super Bowl, I want you guys to acknowledge this one thing. If he's not good enough to win by himself, then you must acknowledge that they don't have enough around Dak Prescott. And I feel like that's like, I don't see how that's hard not to grasp. I just don't get that part. Like, how do you not see this? How do you not get that they're devoid of talent, but we have to blame the quarterback? Well, they elevate things. No, they don't.
To your point, LP, like a phenomenon that I find interesting is people in the same breath will say McCarthy sucks. He's terrible. He doesn't know what he's doing. Kellen Moore was terrible, a horrible play caller, runs nothing but curl routes. Chris, I know you're not a fan of Kellen Moore, but like that's besides the point. Dak sucks. He's one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL, turns the ball over. He has nobody around him, blah, blah, blah. Yet they are consistently one of the highest performing offenses in the, like, what is it? Like, what is the thing that doesn't suck? Like, how are they year in and year out, literally among the best offenses in the NFL if everybody is trash? It's impossible. It's actually literally impossible. So
to them, everybody is trash but Zeke for some reason.
Mind you, when they're doing good, right? If the Cowboys are playing well, their offensive line is the best. Their receiving core, the weapons are amazing. So it's like it's discrediting. And then when you want to say something good, it's they stink or they can't get it done. So the team suck.
Or
the opponents suck.
Or Cooper Rush was kind of the propelling and motivating factor. Danny, not a Dak question, but Watson Mata offered us a super chat. Says we could get the lowest 23 cap hit on Zeke by signing a cheap extension. But dear God, no. Danny, quickly, if the Cowboys extended Zeke, how would you feel?
Terrible.
Okay. Wow. Well said. Okay, we have one more pleased and one more not pleased. We have to fly through these a little bit quickly because this has been such a lively discussion. Again, I'm a little bit, kind of bad at hosting roundtables now. I will be back next week, by the way, in the middle of free agency. Let's stay on not pleased so we can end on a positive note. Danny, who do you think said this between Tony, Chris, and Brandon? The thing they are most displeased, pissed, upset about, Leighton Vander Esch and Donovan Wilson are going to hit free agency. In all likelihood, they could technically get new deals, obviously, before next week, but they are officially, obviously, not getting the franchise tag.
I'm going to go with Brandon again.
Okay, so your guess is Brandon. LP.
Chris.
LP gets points for that. It was Chris. Chris, I got this one right. I double-checked my notes. You said that you are most upset about the Cowboys not having deals done with Leighton Vander Esch or Donovan Wilson. You believe these two players are essential, I guess.
Yeah, I think they're very essential. I mean, Donovan Wilson just led the team in tackles this past season, and Leighton Vander Esch is like the leader, like the mental leader on that defense. And to me, it just really bothers me because Jerry Jones traded Amari Cooper because of a cap situation, correct? And we freed up money from that, and we're still not applying that money. It feels like it seems like we just don't know how to manage a cap situation at all, because like there's no reason why either of those players should be hitting free agency, in my opinion. And like I said, I didn't want either of them to get the tag, but I felt like at least one of them would get signed before free agency started. And I'm saying this in regards to that I've seen a lot of different reports about how they are going to find bigger deals in free agency, and that's why they can't bring them back. It is that they don't think that they can afford them, and that just really, I don't know, it just bothers me because those, like, if they are not on the team heading into next season, then I feel so much less confident. And it really doesn't matter who they replace them with. I mean, like maybe you could replace him with a Bobby Wagner and he could fit in and be pretty good. But like Leighton is such an important piece to our defense. He's such an important piece to all the young guys on the defense. I felt like Damone Clark played better when Leighton Vander Esch was on the field. I feel like all these young guys played better. And it just bothers me that we could potentially lose, if not one, both of them. So yeah, it's very concerning for me. And I think if the Cowboys want to compete for a Super Bowl next season, they need both of these guys back.
Brandon.
I mean, and the fun fact, LV and Donovan Wilson are 1-2 in tackles on the team this year, just in case people forget. So I mean, it is a big loss, Chris. I agree with you. Obviously I'd love to have them both back, but unfortunately they're probably both going to get bigger contracts elsewhere. And unfortunately the Cowboys cap situation is what it is. It's time to, unfortunately they're going to walk. I feel like that's the unfortunate reality.
Danny, a year ago, we were all collectively saying, why are you waiting to pay Jaron Kearse? He's absolutely going to get paid. He's absolutely going to leave this team. He's absolutely going to walk. Lo and behold, Jaron Kearse and Malik Hooker both return, and not only both return, but both returned on 2-year deals. So they're both here on another, obviously, year as part of their contract. Like, is it possible? And Chris, I understand your point. Like the Cowboys should have taken care of this, as Danny mentioned with Tony Pollard, maybe gotten ahead of this a year ago, et cetera, et cetera. But Danny, is it not possible that the Cowboys are playing a little bit of poker, right? Hey, Leighton, Dono, go test the open market. Go see what you can get. And if you can't, we'll be here. We'll be waiting. We'll keep the locker set. We won't even take anything, your nameplate down. We'll talk then.
Yeah, it is. And honestly, the Cowboys play poker pretty well. I mean, people will criticize them because they just don't like this move versus that move. But Dono's going to get overpaid. I mean, I know everyone loves Dono, and he's a good player, but he's not going to be worth his contract. I mean, I don't know what he's going to get. If he gets 6+, he's not going to be worth it to me. There's some limitations with his game that's, it will be exploited in a non-Dan Quinn defense. So I'm not honestly not going to lose any sleep over Wilson moving on. And honestly, as much as Vander Esch, I think he's put together a couple good years, but it all comes down to what his asking price is too. I mean, the Cowboys should not have signed these guys any earlier. They shouldn't have. It would have been really irresponsible because Wilson hasn't been playing this consistent until this last year. And Vander Esch, I mean, he's one hit away from being done. So honestly, I don't blame the Cowboys for being cautious with this. I think they're handling it the best way they can. And this is what you have to deal with. We all talked about how great Dak Prescott is, but he does cost money. And the Cowboys, they have to be responsible with the way they approach things. And I how I feel. I don't have an issue with it, and I'm not going to criticize the team for being responsible. And I don't want the Cowboys spend their rent money on lottery tickets and doing crazy stuff in free agency. So to me, I like how the Cowboys are doing this. And I mean, I expect these players to find new homes.
Tony, will you be devastated if one of or both of these players leave the Cowboys, or will you be kind of bummed but understand like, hey, that's the cost of being good. Like you can't keep, and you shouldn't want to keep everybody, right? Like, you shouldn't want to just bring the whole band back because like the people love to throw that quote out, Tony, when it's convenient, right? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. Well, you can't not apply that statement if you're literally doing the same thing on the defensive side of the ball.
Right. And I think I would be upset for different reasons. I think I appreciate Donovan Wilson's game, so I'd miss that. But I would be encouraged by the fact that we can weather that storm because of how the safety room is now. There's some young, exciting guys that are there, and some of the established veterans. We haven't had this type of feeling in that safety room for a very long time. So I feel good about that. The Donovan Wilson one would stink, but we'd be able to get over that. The Leighton Vander Esch one, to me, is a little more dicey, and it's less about Leighton Vander Esch and more about the room as a whole. I think the linebacker room, and I know it's March, I know it's pre-free agency and pre the draft, but that linebacker room has a lot of question marks and a lot of holes to be filled in. And I thought Leighton Vander Esch put his best foot forward this year, and I think he had earned an option or an opportunity at least to be around here. If the number, like Danny said, is correct and we can get in within a reasonable number, because he earned a payday, but at the same time, it's got to make sense for the Cowboys. I'd be willing to bring him back. But to answer your question more directly, yeah, I'd be upset, but for different reasons.
LP, you talked about obviously how the Cowboys tagged Dalton Schultz a year ago and then drafted Jake Ferguson, found Peyton Hendershot out on undrafted free agency. In that sense, they were prepared. They were looking a year down the road saying, what happens if we don't tag Dalton Schultz or bring him back, whatever. Well, the Cowboys drafted Damone Clark, and we all thought like, oh, boom, like redshirt year. That's the guy to fill in for Leighton Vander Esch when he walks in free agency. And we obviously got more out of Damone Clark his rookie season than we ever thought possible. So are the Cowboys not prepared? I mean, like, I don't think we're pumped about the linebacker situation specifically if Leighton Vander Esch walks, but they have Damone Clark. Jabril Cox still exists. I mean, plus they could bring in Bobby Wagner or a different veteran free agent to help fill that void.
I mean, I'm looking at the list right now as we speak for linebackers. I mean, I've always been a fan of Anthony Walker as a middle linebacker that can play downhill, fill some holes. There's a lot of guys that are available, even on the higher end side. You have guys like Tremaine Edmonds, who's available, Bush from Pittsburgh. It's a lot of different guys that can fall in line. But I like what Dan had said as far as the medicals. If the medicals don't clear, then all of a sudden he could even go visit a team. They check him out, say, we don't know about you. And that might happen. So I feel like with him, he's probably harder to replace. But at the same time, you understand if his market isn't what you think it is based on his injury history. Now, as far as Dono, I think they might be prepping Marquise Bell for a bigger role next season, and maybe that's what the whole ticket is. So I think you can actually replace Donovan Wilson. And again, man, I'm going to have to give my points to Dan tonight because the point he made about Dono being exposed in a different scheme where he's not near the box, has to play in coverage, that might not be a strong suit if he gets paid a lot of money. With a lot of money comes a lot of expectations to do a lot more than what he's being paid to do right now. So by that means, if he gets overpaid, let him walk, let him leave, take your comp pick and stick it in your pocket. So I'm not mad at all about that. Not mad at all, man.
Well, LP is cheering for Danny, it seems, to win this roundtable. We have one final point to go. And on the subject of points, we have a 4-way tie for first place. Chris, LP, Brandon, and Danny each have 45 points. Tony, you had the 1-point lead coming into this section of the conversation. You now trail everybody. You have 44 points to their 45. This is the last thing. One pleased thing. End on a positive note. Somebody said that they are pleased by the fact that the Cowboys are talking about making a big move, saying that is encouraging. Danny, you know the drill. Who do you think said that?
Oh man, it's got to be someone who would get suckered into thinking that. And it's so tough. And now after I've said that, I don't even want to pick. Who is the most hopeful of this group? Man, I don't know. I've been picking on Brandon a lot, so I'm not going to say it. So it's probably him. I don't know. I'm gonna go with Tony because I know he would be happy if he knew that was a real thing.
LP, who do you think is most pleased by the rumor that the Cowboys are considering making a big move of sorts?
Only because he got real still when you asked the question, and now he's rocking kind of back and forth. It's Brandon.
Wow, that was some interesting logic that you both had. Now, to be fair, the verbiage I got, because I did copy and paste this in my notes, it said, even if it's a lie, I would like to believe they're actually looking to make a big move. It's better than the usual pie and counting pennies stuff we usually hear. And that was said to me by Tony Catalina. Tony, talk about a poker face. You
deceived me, man.
Wow, Tony, that was tough. Well done.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, we've been fed pie, so much pie, like it's Thanksgiving. Like I'm so tired of it. The pie talk, I'm all set with it. I just listen, this is me, and I can be wrong, and I can get crushed in the comments, and people can come at me on the show all they want. But like, Jerry Jones is 80 years old. My man was trying to find anything. T.Y. Hilton, Jerry Jeudy, Brandon Cooks, OBJ. Like, I've never seen him, or at least in recent memory, like be so all in on trying to make an immediate move. And I think part of that is because they slipped, stumbled, and fell into a decent football team last year. I don't know if they expected to be as competitive as they were, especially with the Cooper Rush situation and the defense playing the way they were. I don't think anybody, like, I don't know if they truly believed that they would go 12-5 in back-to-back seasons, to be honest with you. So I think they felt that through the season, they got closer than they actually thought they were going to be. Now, they're sitting at a point now where it's like, okay, I'm not getting any younger. Dak Prescott's contract, I mean, he's finally be 30 years old. Like, there is situations and context clues that make me feel like, okay, there is people and moves to be made. Jerry Jones keeps alluding to this. And I mean, for him to say this is going to be a big move, it better not be for like Matt Gay or like, Robbie Gold. You know what I mean? So it's like, I just can't sit here and think that's what he's saying. Why would you keep, I know it's Jerry Jones, so I shouldn't ask why does he keep running his mouth, but why would you keep running your mouth about this big move? And we respect Michael Gelkin. Michael Gelkin's a friend of the show. He's been on the pod. For him to come out there, I don't think he's going to put his neck on the line and say some crazy thing that doesn't have some merit to it. So for me, I think there's some real validity for the first time. And if I'm wrong, guess what? It wouldn't be the first time.
Chris, are you with Tony? Are you kind of willing to say, you know what? Why not? Why couldn't it be the big move? I mean, hey, like the chatter is there. And to be clear, the report, not to come for Gelkin, because you're right, Tony, one of the more credible people who covers the Cowboys on the local beat, was literally that the Cowboys are focused on making an impact addition, but that was kind of it. Like there was no real it was basically, Chris, like saying the Cowboys are focused on adding a very good football player to their team. Again, high level of breaking news there, but do you buy, Chris Halling, that there is some smoke or fire happening here?
I honestly think so, because this front office has shown, I think, a little bit more aggression, especially even this offseason right after we lost to the 49ers. I mean, this team just had a 12-win season, and how many assistant coaches got let go? How many assistant coaches did they move on from? They got rid of Kellen Moore, even though statistically, even though I don't necessarily appreciate him as much as some people on this roundtable, he was a really good statistical offensive coordinator, and they're putting all their faith in Mike McCarthy heading forward. So I think that Jerry Jones is really like trying to say it like, like the time is now. So now what his definition of a big move is, I don't know if that big move is Odell, and I don't know if that's just going to be the big move that we see this offseason, but I would hope that we get some kind of alert, something that we may have been like, no way the Cowboys would do this, and they do it. It would just be awesome. Like maybe there's some truth to this DeAndre Hopkins rumor. I mean, the financials kind of don't make a lot of sense to me how that could work, but maybe, maybe we add a veteran talented player and Jerry Jones is aggressive, because I mean, like Tony said, his time, like he is getting older and he definitely wants to see this team win another ring. So I think that they've shown a lot of aggression this offseason, and they've been trending into that direction of wanting to make a big move and wanting to do something impactful. So it's not like the Cowboys to do something like this. I know that. Trust me, I'm painfully aware, but I am actually a little more hopeful this offseason than previous off seasons.
That's a great point. The accountability that we kind of saw them show would suggest a level of taking it seriously, et cetera, et cetera. Right before we started the roundtable, to your point, Chris, Johnny Venerable tweeted out that the Cowboys are monitoring the trade market for Arizona Cardinals wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins. Again, that's kind of a casual thing. LP, are you willing to go this far? Are you willing to get hurt again? I mean, this does have the makings of like the Battle of Winterfell episode of Game of Thrones, where we were like, no, I know the season has been terrible, but this is it. The Night King is finally at Winterfell. It's going to be epic. And then it sucked. Like, where do you fall?
Man, that show sucked so bad today.
It was great up until
Jeez.
the end, obviously, but yeah,
I mean,
it was flat.
well, look, man, in true Cersei behavior from Steven and Jerry, I'm not buying it, man. Because like you had said, like your definition of big, what is big? An older, well, now 10-year veteran DeAndre Hopkins, that's gonna get me all worked up. No, it's not gonna work. Odell, okay, we had a whole parade for Odell Beckham. Do this like floor seats at a Mavs game, and everyone's like, please sign, Odell, please sign.
Who's one NFL year younger than Hopkins, by the way, to your point about like DeAndre's age.
And you want me to get gassed up about that?
I mean, I'm not telling you to get
like, look, unless you're going to acquire a player in his prime that you're going to pay substantial money. I'm not saying do a Roy Williams deal. I'm not saying that, or a Galloway thing. I'm not saying that. But if you're going to pay substantial money to somebody, go do it. Like, look, make an AJ Brown trade. Go do that. That's not that crazy. If that's your big move, you want to get a guy on the rise that's young, like an Amari deal again, sure. But for me to trade like a 5th-round pick for a veteran, nah, man, I'm not buying that. And if you guys are gassed up about it, then maybe y'all drank the Kool-Aid, but nah, I'm sober on this one. I'm not buying none of that stuff. I'm sorry.
Wow, before we keep going, Tony, you want to have a rebuttal here?
Yeah, it's not LP because I know LP's takes come from like validity and really thought out. But this fan base is super funny to me because this is the fan base that tell you make a move, do this move, and then you're like, nah, that move's not big enough. That move's not good enough.
Well, Tony,
Hopkins doesn't work.
Well, the clapback against that here specifically is like them touting it as a big move. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why like I do think it is fair right now for the collective to feel that way. Like to your point, like they signed T.Y. Hilton in December and people are like crapping on that. Like, dude, well, it's December. Like, have some context. Like you can't go make a big move then, but you're talking like it's going to be a big move. This is the time of year where you can make a big move. You're in a position to make a big move. All the stars line up for it to be a big move. So it can't fall flat.
I agree that OBJ wouldn't be a big move. I think that's a medium-sized move. But I do think even at 32, DeAndre Hopkins could change the complexion of this offense. I mean, it may be for a year or two, but I think right now he could really help this team.
Maybe the context of what is big really is an indication at how small the Cowboys currently are, not what the move necessarily would be. Brandon, we've got two that are drinking the Kool-Aid. Tony and Chris are passing the bottle back and forth between themselves. The big, kind of like curvy vase of Kool-Aid. The Kool-Aid man's running through the wall. LP's like, nah, I'm good. I'm chilling. I don't want anything to do with that. Where do you fall, Brandon?
I'm drinking my water.
See, you're chilling too. You don't buy it.
Chilling. I'm not buying it either. Jerry Jones to me has always been he's been a used car salesman. I don't buy anything he's putting out there right now. But if there is a deal to be made, we've been throwing around certain players and ages and contracts. If you want to throw players and contracts and everything involved here, I'm game for Kyle Pitts. I know we talked about tight ends earlier. Kyle Pitts he's in his prime. The contract numbers, the hit's not that big compared to the D-Hop kind of a deal or even a Brandon Cooks kind of deal. And he's working his way up. He's still a very young, talented player. At the end of the day, it just depends on what would it take to get Kyle Pitts at this point, and that's to be seen. So if there was a big move to be made, that might be the one that would make me very happy with the move, because I'm not a big fan of throwing a bunch of draft picks and money around at guys that are getting up there. They're on the back nine on the golf course, so to speak. I'd rather go after a young guy who's just gotten the league in the last 2 years. His contract is, and he's still under control he's got 2 more years. He has a 5th-year option. And again, the cap hit is not that big. And Kyle Pitts to me, and I don't care, I'll say it right here. Kyle Pitts to me is a unicorn. I think he's a supremely talented tight end. And I think the sky's the limit for this kid. And I think he's going to be one of the better tight ends in the league in the short term here coming up. And if the Cowboys can strike a deal with the Falcons, that would be the deal. But any other deal, I just don't see happening.
Danny Phantom, we have 2 4s and 2 against. Break the tie. Optimism, negativity, hope, sunshine, rainbows, dark, gloomy rain clouds. Up to you.
Well, you already know where I'm at on this one. I mean, but I kind of feel like this is like a couple of weeks into free agency. Jerry Jones is come in and just pass out ice cream sandwiches, and everyone's going to be like, "Is this our big surprise?" And because it's not going to happen. We know there's not going to be a big move. Now, maybe in his mind he thinks he's going to make a big move, and it's almost like, George Costanza, if you believe it, it's not a lie. So I think that maybe the Cowboys front office might in their own head think that they're going to make some type of difference making move this offseason, but come on, it's not going to happen. We all just let's reel it back in, so we're all not disappointed together. We don't want to find out later that's like, well, what's our move, and then it's nothing, because we know it's not going to happen. The Cowboys, we know how the Cowboys operate. It would be so uncharacteristic of them to throw draft capital, and we know that they are working under these budget constraints, and they're not going to be doing things reckless. So it would be so out of character for them to do it. There's nothing that tells me this is going to happen. So just put it out of our mind.
When I was in LP, you have a point.
Sorry, can I ask y'all a question? Just real quick question, right? Would you guys rather do the Hopkins trade with draft picks, or would you guys rather take a Keenan Allen free agent cut and a JS, like a Smith and Jigba like draft pick?
Anything with Jackson Smith and Jigba, like any path that includes.
I know you like them. I know you like them.
Any path.
I'm just saying. I'd look, if I'm not going to spend the draft capital, I'd rather take Keenan Allen to come on in, be that third down receiver, be that slot option. And if JSN falls on the board to you guys, excellent, no problem, no questions asked. I'd rather do that and trade extra draft capital for a guy that got suspended last year, a guy that's I think is kind of on the downswing. That's just me. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I just want to throw that out there.
Chris.
I would personally rather, apparently the reports are saying that the Cardinals kind of want like a second round pick kind of deal. I'd rather go all in and win now, personally. Unless you're guaranteeing JSN like as well as a Keenan Allen, then cool. But if you're just comparing signing Keenan Allen after he's kind of, been going downhill, to me feels like a typical Jerry Jones. Like, oh, I just want to, see if I can find lightning in a bottle kind of situation. DeAndre Hopkins to me is a guy who instantly comes in and complements CeeDee Lamb extremely well. He gives that kind of a jump ball guy. He gives some more, he gains more attention from the defense than I think a Michael Gallup or even the third wide receiver option. So I would rather go all in now and trying to win and maximize trying to win now, because that's what we need to do. Right now, especially since the NFC feels pretty open, in my opinion, with a healthy Cowboys roster.
Brandon, then Tony.
Danny, to Danny's point, when after we get ice cream, anyways, I'm excited for that if it's vanilla. But I think DeAndre Hopkins for a second round pick. He's on the back nine of his career. I get Chris's point that he's out, going all in. But there's a few receivers in the first round in the draft that I think would be very, very good. I think JSN's good. I'm an Addison guy. If we get one of those guys in, I'm completely happy as a compliment to CeeDee Lamb.
Tony.
I hate dogging on the fan base, but like we're sitting here in the last couple of weeks where I've had fans tell me like they're not in on Jalen Ramsey, they're not on DeAndre Hopkins, but like we're hyping up T.Y. Hilton, and we're like, it blows my mind. Like Jonathan Hankins is a must re-sign now, but like we couldn't possibly see a world where Jalen Ramsey might be worth it or DeAndre Hopkins might be worth it. I don't know if we just got into this like Eeyore type of mentality. Like, well, I guess we just won't do anything. We'll just be middle of the pack. And it's tiring to me.
To your point, sort of, Tony, Jonathan Hankins was a player who they traded for at like the week before the deadline, and they never got any credit for that. Like that was the week before the deadline. And then like the Tuesday of the deadline, people were like, well, of course the Cowboys aren't going to do anything. It was like, they traded for a dude. They had a need at interior defensive line. And now they traded for a guy. To your point, Tony, that a lot of people are like, you have to re-sign Jonathan Hankins. He was that pivotal. He was that critical. My only take on this, before I wrap us up here, is I think we need to slow down with the like what would actually be a big move thing. I recognize we've all been hurt. We've all been scarred. We're very frustrated. But the Cowboys can't win the Super Bowl tomorrow. They can't win the Super Bowl with any trade. They cannot do anything that is going to erase all of our frustration. So why not, if they sign Odell, or if they sign a cut Keenan Allen, or if they trade for DeAndre Hopkins, or whatever the case may be, why not say, you know what? They did something. You know what? They took one step forward. Let's acknowledge that. Let's recognize that. Let's applaud them for that. We don't have to hang a banner, but we can recognize that they are moving forward. LP.
I'm good, man.
Oh, I thought you raised your hand. All right. So we are in an interesting situation here. We have 5 of you, and we have a 5-way tie for first place with 55 points apiece. I don't know if you guys want to see that. Everybody has 55 points. So instead of having a shared title here tonight, we're going to do the Survivor style. Everybody's going to vote for somebody who they think should win. and there are 5 of you. So if you can't reach a consensus, nobody wins, and we all just wasted over an hour of our lives. So Danny, let's start with you. Who should win the roundtable and why?
You know what? I'm gonna actually go with LP because he said a lot of things I agree with, and he also agreed with a lot of things I said. So I think that's a great alliance forming right there. So that's who is getting my nod tonight.
Okay, Chris, who should win the roundtable? You can vote for yourself, to be very clear here.
Yeah, no, I'm voting for myself. I gave the best answer.
Oh, you say that
I should be
after
a
I
winner.
go.
So yeah, no, I'm definitely voting for me.
Okay, so that's 1 for Chris, 1 for LP. This is a majority wins. So Brandon, who should win tonight?
Well, I guess I'm voting for myself apparently. So
wow. Okay, so we've got a vote for Brandon, we've got a vote for Chris, a vote for LP. Tony, who should win tonight's roundtable?
I can't believe Danny's gonna be the only one who doesn't vote for himself.
Is that you
So
saying
me.
that you're going to vote for yourself?
That's a pretty good good thought there to think of that. So yes, I'm voting for myself.
All right, so we have 1 vote for Tony, 1 vote for Chris, 1 vote for Brandon, 1 vote for LP. LP, you have the last vote. So what do you want to do here?
I mean,
Take it, LP. Take it. Take it.
nah, man. It's like winning by disqualification, man. You know what? We'll just tie it up, man. I'm giving it to Dan. Phantom of the blog. You got it, man.
Wow. So I did not intend for there to be a
I think
5-way
RJ still
tie.
needs to vote.
RJ, you break
I'm
the
about to say,
tie.
RJ
RJ.
has the breaking vote.
Break it.
All right, I'll take it. I'll take the
But you cannot vote for any of us.
Look,
How about a commenter? How about that?
I'll give the commenters 1 minute to decide who should win. The live audience that is here. So actually, the first person who comments somebody's name, the first live commenter who comments somebody's name is the winner. I'm doing my best to stall. So I don't know. This is kind of like a spinning of the and we'll see who somebody decides should be the most important person here. Oh, here we go. Watsamata said, excellent move, LP. Kevin said LP. That was the first comment. Tony, you jumped the gun.
Always do.
And you celebrated too early.
I'm rooting for LP.
Kevin was first, said LP. Just so we're clear, Scott said Tony. George said dude in the top right. So Chris, maybe you want to change your Twitter bio. Rachel said Tony, a little bit biased here. Man, Tony, maybe Rachel should, maybe they'll be more objective. That's all I'm saying. It can't always be Tony. That's just, Watsamata said Dan. Matthew said Tony. Again, it's family show. I love their own choice. All you, great show. Byrne said Tony. Lamar said Tony. Damon said all. Rick said Tony got a lot of votes. Brandon, do you feel like we should give it back to Tony?
Jeez, I feel like I'm left out of this. I didn't see one of me. Jeez.
Wow. Well,
no love tonight. Wow.
We knew the rules. Back-to-back wins. LP Cruz. LP, how do you feel? And you know what, LP, you deserved it because you were the only one who was selfless, who didn't choose themselves when you could have.
I mean, Dan didn't, but I mean, honestly,
Dan didn't know. We don't know that
Oh.
Dan wouldn't have done it if he had known.
That's
and
cool,
and we will never know.
Ooh, Brandon, by the way, Scott says you get no votes for wearing green. You have not learned your lesson around here. Brandon, you wear the Eagles players a lot. Wow, LP, back-to-back wins. Who do you want to thank? And what are you currently watching on Netflix?
1, Castlevania. That show is awesome.
Okay.
2, I mean, you guys have had me on as always. This is a fun time. Chris, great points, man. You probably could have took the belt also. And of course, the fans, man. We're not only here because you guys, give us the spotlight to be here. So once again, thanks to the fans, the commenters, everybody on YouTube, and of course, RJ for hosting.
Wow. I missed hosting, and I'll be back next week. Like I said, it will be after the second day of legal tampering. So you guys can all return. I know we have some other people who are slated to return as well. It will be a fun show. Hopefully we have some news, obviously, with regards to the Cowboys. But since I haven't been here in a while, it's kind of like riding a bike, and you just kind of do what feels natural to you. So Tony, I'm going to have you make a random noise. And I actually would like you to make the noise of Shrek finding out that Daniel Jones is making as much money per year as Dak Prescott.
Man, I haven't watched that in like 20 years.
Okay, that's great. It's not what I asked for. I asked for something very specific.
I don't even know his voice. I think Brandon's a Shrek guy. Brandon, take it away.
No, Brandon, you're already wearing green. You already have the Shrek, kind of visual going. So Brandon, I'm sorry, Tony, this is yours. Don't shy from it, Tony. This is your moment to shine.
I'll do it.
Yeah,
Look at
let
this,
MP,
Tony.
I'll do it.
that's a winner mentality right
I
there.
mean, I don't know. Hey, they paid Daniel Jones $40 million. Hey, what is this?